welcome to the International Code Council Region 1 and Region 1 Radio Show. My name is Tim Spears and I'm the host of Region 1 Radio. Region 1 was established in 2014 and we're made up of 3 states, California, Nevada, and Hawaii. That also includes 32 ICC chapters. We are dedicated to excellence in education and engagement to promote a safer environment by bringing individuals together. These videos and podcast series were designed to highlight individuals and the chapters that make up our region and share their experiences. If you enjoy our show, please make sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube channel. In this episode, I spoke with Cindy Davis, Deputy Director for the Division of Building and Fire Regulations with the State of Virginia, and the President of the Board of Directors for the International Code Council. In this episode, we discussed her background, building relationships, the International Code Council's global initiatives, and the many programs the International Code Council offers code professionals. Links to the items that we discussed can be found in the show notes. Hey, good morning, Cindy. How are you today?
I am great. Thank you so much. How are you? And good morning to you.
Good morning to you on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast, and it is an early morning here out on the West Coast, but that is okay. This is I'm a little bit of an early riser, which is kind of nice. So, but welcome to ICC Region 1 Radio. I'm excited to have you on because I think that you have a lot of insight that many of us in the code profession and code professionals can definitely learn from. You happen to work for a state agency where a lot of us, that I talk to on a frequent basis are more local agencies, and so there's a little bit of a difference there. But I think that all of it is, we still kind of we still have that same intent. With that being said, can you share a bit about your background and how you got started in the profession?
Sure, happy to do that. I actually started as a secretary in the fire marshal's office in a small community in western Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Pittsburgh. And from there, it evolved to property maintenance inspector and residential inspector. Then I went back to school for civil engineering technology and started working on my certifications through one of the legacy organizations at the time, Boca International. And from there, I became a building official to another community just outside of Pittsburgh, stayed there for 13 years. But it was about a 40-mile commute one way. So when the opportunity presented itself to move back to the community that I had originally left and become the building official there, I took that opportunity and was there for 6 years. Had served some terms on the Boca Board of Directors at the time, and actually was on the board when we dissolved that organization and created ICC. So then an opportunity presented itself in Virginia, and it's funny how things come full circle and work, but when Pennsylvania was starting to think about a statewide building code in the late 90s, Virginia had already had one for decades. And so when I was testifying and working on this state code in Pennsylvania, I used Virginia as a model and brought their organization with me and talked about how they had done it so successfully for so many years. And I had worked with many Virginians on a lot of national committees for a number of years. So when this opportunity came up to work for Virginia, I jumped at that opportunity, and I had the amazing honor to work directly for Emory Rogers, who just is an icon in the code industry. And you may be familiar with the Emory Rogers Fellowship. Yep. At ICC, and to have had the opportunity to work with him for years before he retired. And I actually am in the position that he had. So it's just been an adventure in the code arena, and things don't always go as you plan, but you end up where you're supposed to, I think.
I don't disagree with that in the sense that I think many of us, to be more well-rounded as code professionals, we get a lot of different experiences. And I think from those experiences, it makes us, like I said, more well-rounded, but provides better perspective on things. I'm kind of the same way with, in the sense I've migrated throughout my career. I worked in the Midwest. I started with the state of Iowa as a deputy fire marshal, moved to Colorado, worked in Colorado for a bit, and now I'm in California. And along those stops, I've been able to work for, some true visionaries. And be able to kind of see some different things. And it sounds like you've kind of had those same experiences. And I think it's always unique for many of us to have that, to be able to share that expertise. I worked for a state fire marshal in the state of Iowa. His name was Ray Reynolds, and he had one of those. He had an initiative to try to get a working smoke alarm in everybody's home. That was one of his initiatives, and he was very diligent in trying to get that accomplished. Then going to Colorado Springs and working for the fire marshal there, Brett Lacey, a true visionary as it relates back to a lot of different programs and life safety programs. And so now I'm making my way out to California. It's obviously we have a tendency to be very active in the code world. And so it's definitely one of those areas that I've valued throughout my career. Now, it sounds like you followed a similar process. We talked to Chief Tanya Hoover with the Department of the National Fire Academy, and she also worked in the great state of Pennsylvania for a time. Maybe your paths crossed it on occasion, hopefully, but if not, it sounds like you guys kind of shared that same pathway.
Well, unfortunately, my path did not cross with Tanya when she was in Pennsylvania, but happily it has crossed, at other times during our careers, and most recently at the CFSI dinner in Washington, D.C. So she just is an amazing woman, and I can't say enough about her. Yeah.
Speaking of CFSI, can you talk a bit about that? So some of our guests have talked about CFSI, but can you let us know what CFSI is and how ICC, and that's probably one of the things I forgot to mention, that Cindy is also the president of the board of directors for the International Code Council, and how ICC works with the CFSI.
But thanks for that question. CFSI is the Congressional Fire Services Institute, and it is an organization that was actually started by a legislator in Pennsylvania, and his name escapes me at the moment. But it was an effort to convene the fire service as one voice at the federal level on needs and wants of the industry, and I think it just has done an amazing job. And so the Congressional Fire Services has a dinner every year in Washington, D.C., and it brings together federal representatives, everyone in the fire service. And it actually this year was the first time I've had an opportunity to attend. And I had these visions in my head of what the CFSI dinner was like, and it just exceeded all expectations. It really is a wonderful event. It has the who of the fire service in attendance, and the ability to network and coordinate. And, my favorite term du jour is peer-to-peer capacity building. I mean, you cannot put a value on those kinds of relationships that are built at events like that, and the opportunities you have to get expertise from all over the world, really. So it's just an amazing organization, and it continues to represent the fire service very well.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think a lot of having those abilities to network and being able to network with those that are going to hopefully affect or influence policy at a federal level is definitely a good thing to have. And so, I'm kind of jealous. I think that I get to see the pictures being here on the West Coast, and not necessarily being able to make the travel. But yeah, like you said, the who's who of fire service professionals are definitely in attendance at that dinner. So. So we kind of talked about how early it is today, right? It's 7:13 on the West Coast, and I think it's 9 o'clock over in your neck of the woods. But as I was stumbling to get out of the house this morning and trying to grab my microphone cord and my webcam before I left the house, so I was kind of throwing off my morning routine a little bit. But what is, I always want to talk to leaders to see what their morning routine looks like. Many of us read, many of us work out. So what does your morning routine look like as you prepare for the day, and really kind of try to get a jump start on what you need to do throughout the day?
Well, stumbling's a good descriptor. It usually entails hitting snooze 2 or 3 times, and then lots of coffee. Coffee. I love to grind my own beans.
Okay.
And I'm always on the lookout for a new vendor in fair or direct trade with their beans. And actually, I just found one at the farmers market here in Richmond a couple weekends ago, and I just love them. It's a local young active duty military family who started their own coffee roasting business, and
okay.
It's called Bugle Call, and they store the beans, the Peruvian beans, in a Maker's Mark bourbon barrel
Interesting.
Before they roast them. They have lots of flavors, but I think that's my favorite so far. So anyway, my morning revolves a lot around coffee. Getting out the door with
said coffee.
Yes. Oh, and a thermos for refills as necessary. And then when I get to the office, it's usually, opening the emails, looking at the Richmond Business Times, seeing what's happening on the national level, and any communications coming from the governor's office, just trying to get ready for the day before it hits, as it's apt to do.
Yeah, if you don't take that little bit of time beforehand, then you can definitely get bombarded with all different things and all different influences that may impact your day. And so I can definitely understand that. We had a staff meeting yesterday. I was talking to my staff, asking. I think I came up with a coffee cup full of water, and so we got on the topic of coffee. And so to talk with my staff and listen to their different thoughts and how they kind of do a similar routine. I have some that do use a French press, and never would have thought that. I don't even own a French press. I do own a bean grinder, but I'll be honest, I'm very lazy when it comes to coffee in the morning. It's 4:30. I throw a new filter in, and so I just Dunkin' Donuts, the ground Dunkin' Donuts coffee is probably good enough. I'm pretty lazy when it comes to that. So, so we talk about, your love of coffee and how you get started for the day. But how do you balance life and work? You're very busy, not only in your position there with the state of Virginia, but also as the board president. So how do you balance life, and how do you balance that with your work aspect?
Not very well. I'm trying to be better at that, but frankly, I have an empty nest. I am by myself. I don't have to worry about kids. So work is my focus, and I knew that board service and this position in Virginia both are very demanding, and I knew they would be, and so that's to be expected. But as I reach the end of that service, I am looking forward to having a bit more balance, and so I've bought a bicycle,
Okay.
And I happen to live on the Virginia Trail along the James River that connects the three capitals of Virginia: Richmond, Williamsburg, and Jamestown.
Oh, neat.
And it's just a fabulous. I think it's about 54 miles. It's a wonderful trail. It's beautiful, and there's historic plaques all along the way, and I never tire of stopping to read them. Colonial and Revolutionary War and Civil War and birthplace of Powhatan, Pocahontas's father. It's just so much history here, and I love that. So I'm looking forward to spending a bit more time on the trail and on my bike, and I have 5, soon to be 6 grandchildren.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. 2 of them are in Pennsylvania with my daughter. She has 2 daughters, still back north of Pittsburgh. And my son has 2, soon to be 3 boys and a little girl. So he and his family are in the Phoenix, Arizona area. So I hope to be able to spend more time with them as things balance out a bit in the future.
Yeah, well, hopefully in the winter months you can venture out to Phoenix where it's a little warmer. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it today because I think it was 120 in Death Valley yesterday. So I'm sure it's probably just as warm in Phoenix.
Yeah, my son is a runner, so he gets up every morning around 4:30 to try and get a run in early before the heat hits, and he has to go to work. So it's brutal, that heat when you're a runner.
Yeah, well, and I laugh because in the wintertime, we typically see videos of people throwing water into the air and it freezes, right? Right. In the summertime, we typically see people in Phoenix putting eggs on concrete and they cook. So it's like that different dichotomy. So to see those different things. But
extreme, for sure.
You talked about, tough ways to find balance in life, especially when it comes to demanding positions. And I definitely experience that same thing. It's just trying to find those moments in life where we can, take the time to be able to hopefully be able to alleviate a little bit of stress and find things that will definitely help, kind of keep us very mindful of what we do every day. So, part of the thing, as code professionals, we understand that the code world is always evolving, right? The code change cycle is definitely here in California upon us. And ICC continues to work on the code change process, anywhere from the Group A to the Group B, different cycles. But how do you stay and continue to learn and stay on top of all the different things within your role there with the state of Virginia?
So I think being on the board gives me a huge advantage in that. Obviously being in the center of everything that's happening nationally and seeing the things coming down the pike, it gives me an opportunity to get ahead of it. And oftentimes we'll bring things that aren't even published yet into the current Virginia codes. CLT was a good example. Yeah. Having had the opportunity to for a short time sit on and then watch as it evolved, that work group that worked on cross-laminated timber and the fire tests and everything that was involved with that effort. It gave Virginia a little bit of a head start in getting that in place. So definitely being on the board and being involved at the national level with the code process is a huge help in staying on top of things. We, the chemicals used in the extraction process for marijuana and hemp and getting your head around that, and the energy storage systems and everything that's happening as those continue to evolve. It really is beneficial to have that information. And then I'm able to identify leaders in that area and bring them in, as instructors for our Code Academy, which helps to bring new technologies to the attention of our continuing education program in Virginia. So it's a circular evolution.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the Code Academy. Can you describe what the Code Academy is and what its purpose is there in the state of Virginia?
Oh, sure. So the Virginia Code Academy is in our agency. It is charged with, by law, certifying and tracking continuing education for anyone who does inspections within the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Okay.
That Code Academy is supported by a 2% levy fee of all permits issued within the Commonwealth. So it has a designated revenue source. And there's just so many great code officials here in Virginia. I mean, they're active at the national level, and they're active at the state level as well. VBCOA, the Virginia Building Code Officials Association, sort of is the umbrella organization in Virginia, and so we draw from that cadre of subject matter experts and bring them into the Code Academy. They help develop the curriculum, that we have continuing education programs that we do, and we are required by law to do the code update training every 3 years, or whenever the Virginia codes are updated, which generally is every 3 years.
Kind of follows that same cycle through ICC. We're, California, we kind of have that same cycle every 3 years.
Well, it depends on how everything falls. Virginia has an Administrative Process Act legislatively, which requires certain things at certain times, and it's about a 2-year process to get through that Administrative Process Act. So it just depends on when the codes come out and where we are in the legislative process. Could be 3, could sometimes 4 years. So. Okay.
Now, you mentioned that all code professionals or anybody that conducts inspections in the Commonwealth it needs to be able to, I don't want to say take classes through the Code Academy, but is it open to not only building inspectors, but residential inspectors, fire inspectors, any and all code professionals?
Absolutely. It is. If you are employed by a local government, you are able to attend the Code Academy, and those are covered by the fees. It includes meals. It includes your hotel if you have to travel. Our modules, which are mandatory, you have to first take the core C-O-R-E, core course, and that gives you a base understanding of the law in Virginia and how it works. And then the various discipline modules are after that. They're 3 to 4 days each. And then the certification is based on the national certification, either through ICC or NCCPCI. So that that process lends itself to really supporting the local jurisdictions and the local inspectors in whatever they need. We look to them to tell us what they need as we develop the curriculum. And so whether it's accessibility or energy or whatever is happening at that particular moment, we strive to bring in the training that they need for continuing education in addition to the mandated core classes that they're required to have.
Yeah, I like the aspect, like you mentioned, how it's funded, being able to be funded through permit fees and be able to then support the continued education of those that are going to go out and then enforce code provisions. I think that that's good, because I think as code professionals, we're always looking for continued education effort or classes to be able to continue to build on the knowledge that we have and understand some of those newer technologies. I will say that really in the last 20 years, we've seen such a growth in different areas as it relates back to anywhere from logistics to CLT to tall wood buildings. I mean, energy storage systems. There are so many different things out there, and I think that it's just going to continue to grow and expand. Like you mentioned, cannabis cultivation and manufacturing. That's another area that I don't know that we probably would have forecasted 20 years ago to have as great an impact as what we currently have.
That is for sure.
Now, talking about the Code Academy, you definitely highlighted one of my next questions was, code enforcement's the sum of many parts. And so working together, trying to find solutions. How do you build cooperative relationships with others to assist in administering building and fire codes in the state of Virginia?
Well, again, Virginia has had a code in place for a very long time, since the early 70s. So we've had a statewide code for over 50 years. And, one of the things that really works in Virginia is that the code as it's developed, is a statewide code. Mm-hmm. So we're a Dillon Rule state. Jurisdictions and counties cannot amend it. So It is what it is statewide. But in an effort to make sure that, that stays a consensus document, we bring all the stakeholders into the process. So, and that's everybody from state agencies, building officials, fire officials, plumbing, mechanical inspectors, Virginia AIA, home builders, realtors associations, retail merchants, hotel motel organizations. I mean, anybody that can have any impact at all by the proposals and the codes being updated, we bring them into that process. We send them, they are able to participate, they are able to attend meetings and provide comments. And at the end of the day, it's, what's that saying? If everybody is unhappy, that means it must have been a good process. So,
right. Yeah.
Not everybody gets what they want, but they certainly can't say that they haven't had an opportunity to make their pitch and be part of the process. It really works very well. We have a large number of our proposals and code process is generally consensus. And in Virginia, we say consensus is anybody other than the proponent that is supportive or non-supportive of a proposal. So basically, it's unanimous. And so that's significant. When you have that many divergent interests in a room for a process to agree on everything, it's pretty significant, and it works well. Wish I could take credit for it, but this process, like I said, there are lots of people way smarter than me that put this in place way before I got here. So it works well in Virginia.
Yeah, I think that's consensus is always important. And as you mentioned, if everybody's unhappy, then apparently it's a good document because nobody feels that it supports one side over another. And it's good to hear that how many different professions you bring in to be able to build that consensus. And now you mentioned that it is a statewide code; they can't amend it, so they can't necessarily amend it to local conditions. Is that it is the base code, and now can they add anything to make it more stringent?
No.
Okay. So
no. Now let me clarify that the statewide fire prevention code, localities can amend the statewide fire prevention code to be more restrictive as long as it doesn't affect the method of construction.
Okay.
So often what we see are land use issues or fire lane things that don't have a direct effect on the building or how it's constructed. Those things can be amended locally in the fire prevention code, but it can't affect the method of construction.
Okay, and that makes sense. I mean, in the sense that different fire agencies may have different response methods or different equipment that may impact or provide impacts to their response. And so they want to be able to amend it to address some of those conditions. And here in California, we can amend different portions of the code, but we can't make it any less restrictive. We can only make it more restrictive. But we have to base it off of topography, climatic, and geographic conditions. And so we have to be able to support it. And it can't be just because we feel like this is a good idea. And so those are some of those things that we definitely strive to try to do. So it sounds like we have a very similar process in California as you do in Virginia, because in California, we also could go through a state process. They go to the California State Building Standards Commission, and then they bring in all those individuals to try to pull to be able to make more of a consensus document. Now, one of the things we talked earlier about was, one thing that you can't live without is coffee. I 100% agree with that. But what other tools could you not live without? Software, hardware, those types of things that really make you more effective and efficient in your position.
That is really an easy one for me. Without a doubt, it's CDPVA. And so the code development process in Virginia is based on CDP access, and we actually contracted with ICC to develop a program for Virginia, specifically customized for Virginia and our legislative process, so that we can utilize all the functionality of CDP access in our legislative process. So it tracks, it has the codes available. Nobody has to type a Word document anymore and strike through and underline it. And then previous to CDPVA, it was truly a paper system. It evolved to email, but basically it's still a paper system, and there's no way of tracking it. It resided on one person's computer. If he would get hit by a bus, we were in dire straits. There were, accusations made from various sides of an issue that, well, that's not the right version. That's not what I submitted. You didn't have the right version in front of the work group. So using this software has just absolutely amazingly streamlined and made our entire lives so much easier. Everything is documented. Anytime anybody goes in and does anything, it's time stamped. It's available for everybody to see. There's public comment availability. All of that goes to the board. It's made our lives so much easier in Virginia.
Well, and it just goes back to highlight how inclusive that process is. If you put it online, people can then comment and add or introduce proposals. One of the I think back to the last round of code hearings and the committee action hearings where we had different individuals in different groups not familiar with the code process at all introduce new code provisions on carbon monoxide because it directly impacted them. And then it helped to bring them into the process. And a lot of code professionals, Robert Marshall here in the state of California, Greg Rogers, and those that sat on that committee, definitely reached out to those individuals to try to work through the code process. Because it could be difficult if you don't quite understand and how to write the different code proposals, but it does bring more people into that overall process.
It really does. And my staff is just absolutely wonderful at helping people understand how to do what they need to do and walking them through and talking them through the process on the phone and how to submit. CDP access is not intuitive either, but once you understand what it is you need to do, it really makes the process easier. And it makes participation much easier for wherever you're at in the state without having to travel to a brick and mortar location to talk to somebody or attend a meeting. So it's really, really been helpful in Virginia.
Yeah, and I think that many of us, anywhere from local, county, and state agencies are trying to make things easier for folks and trying to bring more people in and a lot more inclusivity. And we're overcoming challenges daily. And I think that one of the things that we overcame during COVID was some of the ways that we can connect with folks. We've been able to now do different things like this, where we can talk, almost 3,000 miles away. And the video conferencing is one of those things. But as we talk about challenges and overcoming those challenges, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges for those that are exploring careers in building safety right now?
Well, I would say that probably, as we talked earlier, new technology is happening so rapidly. Keeping up with new technology is always going to be a huge challenge. And as technology in building construction evolves even faster, it's going to be a challenge to keep up with that. So if you're looking to get involved in the career, in the profession, as a building safety professional, I think it's getting involved with a professional organization like ICC or some of the other organizations on the fire service side. There's no better way to focus on your career, to focus on professional development, to learn what's on the cutting edge, it really is important to consider yourself a professional and get involved with professional organizations.
Yeah. And I will tell you that you echo a lot of the same sentiments that many of my other guests have talked about, is getting involved and staying involved. Anywhere from locally, your local ICC chapters and getting involved in that process, but then also getting involved at the national level and connecting with those folks. I have been involved with our Northern California Fire Prevention Officers, Cal Chiefs section for fire prevention for the last several years. And being involved in that has definitely then lent itself to other things that I've been able to connect with, and other individuals that I've been able to connect with and then reach out to should I have questions. And so being involved, I think, is definitely one of those keys.
It absolutely is. And I would add to that, another challenge is getting support to do that from your administration and elected officials. And that has always been problematic. But I just, I would encourage anybody out there that doesn't have the support, find a way around it, work around it. That, if that's an obstacle for you, whether it's a one-on-one mentor with someone you admire or a leader in the field, or looking for scholarships at not just the national level, but a lot of local chapters have scholarship programs now. Find a way around it. And if nothing else, get a group together locally and start interacting together and figuring it out. I think if you truly want to see yourself as a professional, you have to do what it takes to go a little bit beyond the 8 to 4 or whatever the job entails. It's an investment. It's investment in your future, but it's also investment in the future, really, of building safety everywhere.
Yeah, and you identified one of the things that when we talked to Madison Domineski with ICC, she mentioned the mentorship program during Building Safety Month, and we talked about that. And if you are looking for a mentor, ICC does have that mentorship program. So log on to iccsafe.org, and you can access the mentorship program. I can also include a link in the show notes. So if you have questions or you want to seek that out, you can connect with those folks that are in the agency or in the profession right now that can then help you through that mentorship piece. I reach out to a lot of folks in my professional network because we always don't, we don't always have the answers to every question that gets presented to us. And anywhere from a code question to a leadership question, and all of us in the profession want everybody to succeed. We definitely want to see that everybody have the success and be able to continue to grow and develop in the profession. So.
Absolutely. And thank you for shouting out the mentorship program. And let me just throw another quick plug in there, and that's the Emerging Leaders. Oh, yeah. That's a great way to connect at the national level without having to engage any funding or out of office. A lot of their meetings are virtual. Membership is free. Just log on, join the Emerging Leaders, and then start to connect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things we talk about emerging leaders is being able to recruit new people into the profession. I am not in my 20s or 30s anymore, and so I'm always trying to recruit new individuals. My son just turned 19, and so I was trying to recruit him into maybe looking at a technical career and maybe inspections. He definitely did not want to follow my path. But as we talk about recruiting, people into the profession, what advice would you give anybody that is seeking a career in building safety?
Well, it's not too much different than what we just talked about. Anybody seeking a career in building safety, there are just so many opportunities out there with local chapters, with local jurisdictions in connecting and building mentorship programs. I am hopeful. One of the things that I have focused on, and Greg Wheeler before me has focused on for the last couple of years, is the diversity, equity, and inclusion part of the profession. And I think we have an opportunity to engage communities that haven't been engaged previously with this opportunity. So I'm hopeful that will generate some interest in folks that haven't typically thought about code enforcement as a career or an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like them.
Yeah, the more that we can do that, and that's definitely, even Chief Hoover talked about the diversity and inclusion piece, and how do we build on that, and hopefully we can definitely do that over the the course of the next year, to 10 years to continue to build off of that and recruit new individuals into the profession that we have definitely spent a career, and I don't want to say a lifetime, but sometimes it feels like that. But yeah, trying to recruit more people into the profession and trying to find ways to do that. And even, like I mentioned my son, but even trying to bring in those individuals that are just graduating high school and looking at a career path, and potentially trying to find some education outside of high school. I did not necessarily start in building safety or fire safety. When I first graduated high school, I actually worked in healthcare for a bit. And it was just kind of one of those things. Like we talked about your pathway throughout your career. I worked in healthcare. I worked in a long-term skilled nursing facility for several years before then venturing out into fire and life safety. And so, but it was definitely a very rewarding position along the way, and that actually lent itself to having a little bit better, maybe helped improve my communication skills, especially one-on-one talking with people. So,
well, that's a unique pathway for sure.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and I know that you just actually you've been to Canada, you've been to Dubai, I think it was. So ICC continues to emphasize the global partnerships and global engagement. What are some of the steps that ICC is taking to help develop relationships and partnerships with those around the world?
Well, I am so glad you asked this question because, the highlights of my year of presidency, those really were two of the tops, the Canadian visits across from west to east and 10 days in Dubai. And it really, I would say my takeaway, without a doubt, is that it really doesn't matter what code you're enforcing. It does not. The building safety professionals, wherever you're at, they're all trying to do the same thing. They're trying to figure out how to build a building safely, and they're trying to figure out how to approve products or new technology that's being incorporated along the way. So, and that is true throughout. When I was in Dubai, I actually had an opportunity to meet a lot of other people from a lot of other countries. The ACI had a 3D printing and innovation conference there. And so truly people from all over the world talking about the exact same things. An inspector from a university in Sharjah that they had contracted with a developer to do their inspections, and lamenting that it doesn't matter how many times I tell them not to tie the rebar like that. I go back the next day and they've done it again.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything is the same. And so to that end, I think ICC, in addition to opening the office in Dubai, the board just recently approved another office to be opened in Australia for make sure I get this right, the Indo-Pacific region, which includes New Zealand and some of the islands up through Indonesia. So that, in addition to, the efforts underway in Canada, one of the things that I took away from Canada is we have to do a better job engaging our membership in Canada. We have active chapters in Canada, and it has been, I think it was a perhaps a fallout of the recession in the 2010, 2012 time period when everything was cut and only code development was focused on until the organization, got through that time. And I think it just sort of fell off the radar. So, one thing that we are actively doing is trying to re-engage the membership, not just domestically, but certainly globally, and trying to figure out ways to engage building safety professionals around the world, no matter where they're at and no matter what code they're focusing on. And then, of course, there's, in addition to that, the family of solutions, really lends itself to being able to, because every country's different, just like every state is different here. There's different focuses and different levels of enforcement. So whether it's a product evaluation or an accreditation of a testing laboratory or whatever it is, whatever tool they need that ICC can provide within their family of solutions, I think ICC is focused on being able to do that globally to make sure that they have the tools anywhere they need them, just like we do here.
Yeah. And you hit on how the International Code the International Code Council is the International Code Council, right? There are we try to look globally. Last year during the conference at Pittsburgh, Sam Palmer with Clark County, Nevada, he said he was sitting on the major jurisdictions committee. Say that real fast. I definitely stumbled over that a bit, but he sat on that committee, and in sitting in that committee, he engaged with a lot of different code professionals across the world. There were two gentlemen that came from Saudi Arabia and also spoke to different challenges that they have. He also then was able to network in somebody from the Bahamas, and they were able to speak on some of the different things that they were experiencing. And so I think that as time goes on, we continue to build and connect with those. And also, too, maybe we'll see an ICC conference outside of the country, and maybe Canada, or maybe over in Europe or someplace else. Australia would be a beautiful place to visit. I don't know if I can put that in my travel, but I'll definitely try. But it's one of those things that it is. We are. The world is. I don't want to say shrinking, but it is, in the sense of all these different technologies that we're able to reach out and connect with others, and I think that that's an exciting time.
It really is. It truly is. And our CEO Dominic Sims, he's fond of saying that we are an international company that happens to be domiciled in the United States. So truly, as building safety professionals around the globe become more engaged in our process and we engage more with them, it's probably not beyond the realm of possibility that, our conference may be outside of the United States, one day. And as we talked about earlier, having different experiences gives you such a different perspective, and it helps you engage better. The more differences you learn and the more opportunities you have, it makes you better at engaging with others and understanding where they're coming from. So I really hope that, we're able to do what's needed to help building safety professionals wherever they're at.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Now, that kind of leads into the next question. What inspires you about the future?
What inspires me about the future? I think what inspires me about the future actually is something I talked about just a short time ago, the emerging leaders. Just attending their meetings and listening to them. They are so dynamic and they have such cutting edge ideas, and it's, what's the commercial term? This is not your grandfather's Oldsmobile. This is, a new generation, and I am so excited for what they're going to do in the code profession and where they're going to take the organization and the profession. I think they're going to do amazing things.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. I think that the more people that we bring into this process, the more people that get involved in the process, and those that are up and coming leaders in this industry are going to be very impactful as we continue to move forward. Well, Cindy, I want to thank you for spending almost the last hour of your day with me. I know you're very busy. There's a lot of things going on, especially this time of year. Where can our listeners connect and learn more about the different things that we talked about in this episode, anywhere from the Code Academy to your work as the president with ICC?
So, a couple of options there. I think learning about the emerging leaders and the mentorship program, and one thing we didn't touch on was the high school technical training program.
Yep.
Or now it's just called the technical training program because it's in some colleges as well. All of those are great ways to introduce new people to the profession, and you can find out more about that at iccsafe.org. If you're interested in CDP access and finding out how that works in Virginia, or the Code Academy, or anything I talked about that's Virginia specific, our website is actually the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development. That's where the building and fire codes reside in Virginia, and that is at dhcd.virginia.gov. Department of Housing and Community Development, dhcd.virginia.gov, and you can click on the codes page, and all information related to the development process can be found there. So, and my information is on that website as well, but if it's not, it's cindy.davis@iccsafe.org. If anybody has any questions or wants to reach out to me, I'm always happy to talk to the members and see what's happening out there. And Tim, I can't thank you enough for inviting me to the West Coast, because it's so wonderful to connect with the members. And I enjoyed it very much, so thank you.
Well, I really appreciate your time. It's one of those that I always want to try to showcase, not only just people within Region 1. We definitely try to highlight code professionals within Region 1, anywhere from Nevada, California, and Hawaii, but also those in the industry leaders that I also think that not only Region 1, but the rest of the regions within ICC can also learn a little bit about. And even as we talk about those that are wanting to try to get into the profession, understand the profession a bit more. And I think that these conversations are always valuable. I always learn a lot. I'll tell you, I started this, it was kind of a selfish reason, because then I can talk to people like you and be able to learn a lot more, and be able to help me grow and develop as well. And so hopefully others also get that same, that same privilege to be able to take information and develop, and, hopefully be able to refine their skills a bit. So.
Well, you do a great job with this, and it's such a wonderful thing that you are providing an opportunity to teach and reach out and learn. And there's just so many great leaders out there, such as yourself, and to have an opportunity for everybody to listen to that is a gift that you're giving to everyone. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, and if you also agree with Cindy, please make sure to rate us and like us on iTunes. We can always use the help and be able to share this with other folks. So if you know of people that can also value these types of conversations, share it with them, and hopefully they can learn a bit as well. Well, with that, we're going to bring the episode to a close. Cindy, is there anything that you would like to add before we close out this episode?
Just a big thank you to you and to Region 1 for all that you do. Thanks.
All right. Well, that brings our episode to a close. Like I said, please, rate and like us on Apple Podcasts. And with that, until next time.